Hello, everybody. Much like Mr. Garrison, we are back in South Park. I am Shirley.
And I am Rachel.
And welcome to Podcasa Bonita, our vaccination special edition.
Yes, we are back, and we were happy to be back, much like Mr. Garrison.
Hopefully, our four fans out there will feel much better about us being back than the townsfolk of South Park feel about Mr. Garrison being back. And much like the viewers of South Park about Mr. Garrison being back.
I was actually so curious what they were going to do with him, so I'm glad that I finally know.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the vaccination special, if you didn't get that the first couple times.
Yes. In case you missed it, it aired on March 10th, 2021.
Yeah, after a couple months of not hearing anything from South Park, and after that wonderful-ish pandemic special that we reviewed a couple months ago, they came back around with the vaccination special, which I really was not expecting. I'm not going to lie. When they released it, I think they released a trailer on Instagram, which is how I first found it, and I just DM'd Rachel, and I was like, holy shit! When did this happen?
I know. And so the episode came, and it has a brand new intro. Did you notice that?
Oh my god, yeah. I actually did not.
You liar! Okay, let me pull it up. Hold on.
It kind of didn't even faze me, because it's been so long since we'd watched a general South Park episode that I forget the theme song exists. I remember I loved in the pandemic special that the show kind of opened up with a musical number by Cartman.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that. So with this intro, I kind of didn't even realize that, oh yeah, they're a regular introduction to South Park.
Okay, so do you want me to read the new intro?
Go for it.
Okay, it says, this program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures. These stereotypes were wrong then and will still be wrong in the future. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. Like the Muppets, this show should not be watched by anyone.
That intro! Okay, I thought you meant a musical intro.
No, the intro.
No, yeah, the disclaimer.
Yeah, whatever. It's an intro. It's the first thing you see.
And you can tell, this show is incredibly unscripted, as it always has been.
Yeah.
Which I think our fans like and expect from us, because when you expect nothing, all you can do is go up from there.
Yeah.
But no, that was fun. That was interesting. A very weird niche jab. See, I knew what they were talking about, but I have a feeling a lot of people who did read it did not know what it was about.
Yeah, I didn't at first. I was like, wait, what did the Muppets do? I was like so confused. But no, then several people pointed it out to me. I was like, okay, thanks.
For any of our viewers who do not know, on Disney Plus, they added The Muppet Show, which slaps, and I've watched The Muppet Show since I was a kid. And the show on Disney Plus has, like, a little disclaimer about, like, some previous, like, more insensitive stereotypes. You know, it wasn't anything major, at least what I can remember from the show, but it did have some, like, things that probably wouldn't be as thrown about as carelessly as they were back then in the 70s when the show aired. So they have, like, a small, like, disclaimer saying, like, hey, some of these stereotypes might be harmful, we're not cutting them out, but we're just acknowledging the fact that, hey, you know, it's not something that we're proud of, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of funny because I only really remember The Muppet Show as being incredibly wholesome as possible. But, hey, if I missed an episode of Fozzie Bear doing blackface, then I sincerely apologize. But I thought that was a small little niche thing, which South Park is notorious, especially nowadays, for doing those incredibly niche inside jokes.
Yeah.
And I think I want to get into that, like, later in, like, my criticisms of this episode, but for the most part, I liked this special a lot more than really almost anything that's aired in the past couple of years.
And I think you guys can probably guess why we liked this one better than the pandemic special. Can you tell them why, Shirley?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's start off with, like, a little synopsis. This one is not written, so I'm not reading from a prompt, so I guess you're just going to have to go along the ride with me as I try and remember little fucking details that happened. So, this special essentially opens up where, as opposed to the last special, the boys are actually in class. They're at school now. You know, they're trying to follow guidelines and everything. And Cartman plays a very not so nice prank on his teacher that causes her to storm out and lament about how, you know, teachers are risking their actual lives to be with shithole students, and they're not even the first to be vaccinated. Meanwhile, the cool spot in South Park is the Walgreens.
Yeah.
It's basically acting as a club where only old people can get in. And the prank goes so wrong with the vaccine that, and with the complaint that teachers aren't being vaccinated, that whole school is just kind of uprooted, and everybody's pissed off at the four main boys, even though, of course, it was really just Cartman doing it. He told everybody that it was all four of them, and that's where another kind of B, C, D plot comes in, where the boys, our main four, are worried about their broship not surviving the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't know who taught Matt and Trey the term broship, but I just want to talk. I want to have a conversation with that person.
I don't think I've had anybody use the term broship before, like, ever. I don't think that ever was a phrase. I think they just made it up or thought that it happened.
It sounds very much like two old guys like Matt and Trey trying to, like, they think this is like lingo, but no one's ever used it.
It's very much like Gen X kind of speak.
I will say though, I did like whenever Cartman kept saying, he's like, I feel like our broship is just going through the broshins. I thought that was funny.
See, I will give them a pass for the wordplay. I will give them a pass for the very clever wordplay. Oh, but as these events are going on, we have a certain Mr. Garrison appear without a spray tan and without a wig. It is back to plain old Mr. Garrison, just trying to live his best life back in South Park. Like, golly, it's almost like he totally forgot that he was president for a while, which is wild. Well, oblivious to him, the town is not so thrilled that Garrison's back there after, well, I don't even think we really need to say anything.
I did like, though, especially when Mr. Garrison was being interviewed by PC Principal for his old job back, and Mr. Garrison described it. He's like, I went through a phase of being the president of the United States.
Oh man! If only it were like that.
Yeah, and then PC Principal's like, well, as someone who formerly identified as the president, this could be a problem. I thought that was funny.
It quite was. There was actually Garrison's plot line surprisingly, even when he was having his stay in the White House, not in real life, only in the show. Only in the show did I find that material actually very funny. I quite enjoyed Garrison's stay in the White House. Now, if it had never happened at all, I probably would have liked that even more. But since he was there, at least the material from the past couple of seasons regarding him has been relatively pretty funny.
Yeah.
But, with Mr. Garrison, we also see a return of the Whites, which probably are my favorite allegory to the real world in South Park. And we also get a dive into the QAnon forum.
Yeah.
Which, you may not have heard of it, but there was an attempted insurrection on the Capitol in America. A little thing we might have skipped over.
Yeah, you might have forgotten about that. It was a million years ago.
Oh, yeah, like a whole 3 months ago. Woo, man. Time sure does fly when you're terrified of national security.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of his followers, QAnon followers, call Mr. Garrison the Chosen One, are still incredibly loyal to him, and Garrison wants absolutely nothing to do with them. But that kind of leads them into jumping down the rabbit hole a little bit, trying to decode. I believe the phrase was blow shit out your dick hole.
Yes, that's correct.
They actually, have this entire conspiracy, and they end up deciding to become remote teachers and tutors to try and indoctrinate the children of South Park into right-wing conspiracies, which sounds bad, and it is. But damn, was it funny.
Yeah, I especially liked their meeting when they were talking about this, and Mr. White goes, "The elite want to fuck with our kids, well, we'll fuck theirs too." That's very South Park.
That was incredibly South Park.
Yes.
Now, we have your Garrison storyline, primarily, and then you're also going to have the A-plot, which is what makes this episode so refreshing, or special, I guess. It really isn't even an episode, it's an hour long. What makes this so refreshing is that our Farm Lane boys are the entire focus.
Mm-hmm.
The entire focus, and Randy has like one speaking line the entire time. Entire time. I was like, did Matt and Trey even really write this? I'm a little bit skeptical. I'm a little bit, kind of got my conspiracy theories over here.
Yeah, I for one am very happy that the boys are back, because they have not been in the show very much, as we've complained about for years and years. And as you know, Shirley, as Cartman pointed out, silence is violence. So, so the boys not being in it has spoken volumes.
Oh, well, and then the rest of the plot, essentially, we've got the Garrisons and then the boys, and it's into the boys stealing the vaccines and having like a black market of vaccinations to try and fix the school situation, but primarily just fix their broship.
Right.
A raging custody battle between friends, just adds a little bit of wholesome material into the special. But, and at the end, we kind of hit a semi-reset button on the show, which I think we'll get into a little bit of detail what that reset kind of means. But as for now, that's a very weak synopsis of what happened in the special. And if you're watching this right now, I would hope that you had already seen it, because we're obviously not, minding spoilers at all. So,
right. I guess I'll just dive into some of my favorites of this special. I especially liked the old people in South Park really misbehaving and kind of rubbing everyone else's faces in it. My favorite part was the guy doing donuts in the school parking lot outside Mackey's office. That was my favorite one. No, you go.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I love the general gag of the vaccine being the coolest thing, and that the Walgreens is like a club with a legit bouncer, and people are trying all these ways to get in and be vaccinated. And not only is it funny, but it makes me feel a lot better as a viewer of South Park, knowing that they treat the vaccine as something completely normal and desirable, as it should be. Because where I live, I am not eligible to be vaccinated just yet, which makes me very sad. I'm on the waiting list and trying to register every opportunity I get. But apparently I'm not close enough to death unfortunately. So I have not gotten the shot yet. Rachel has, because she works with those close to death.
Indeed. I work at a retirement community, so I was one of the first people to get vaccinated along with the old people. So I kind of slithered my way in there. But speaking of the shots, I agree. I really liked the way that they were overwhelmingly depicted as something that everyone wants to get. And the only people who were wary of them were the QAnon people who Matt Trey were very clearly making fun of. Very similarly to the way they made fun of the Scientology people, where it's like, this is what they actually believe. I loved,
And it's really refreshing, because also in my area, it's unfortunately, and I hate this about it, but a lot of people do subscribe to the notion that the vaccine is, one, unnecessary, or two, dangerous. All of those, fallacies that you could possibly imagine. And it's frustrating knowing that a good portion of the people I live around are, crazy, right-wing conspiracy theorists that think that the vaccine is, dangerous. And I love that, this episode doesn't even really entertain the notion.
Yeah.
100% support the vaccine like it's normal. And it makes me sad that I have to praise the show about that. But at the same time, it was incredibly refreshing, especially considering the demographic in which I live. So, very much appreciated that. And that was probably one of my favorite things about the episode, was the actual desirability of the vaccine.
Yeah, another thing about the vaccines that I really liked was I loved the little wordplay joke that they had throughout, where people were like, "I just want to get my shot." It was very Hamilton.
Very Hamilton-esque, and that's another thing I have to praise about this episode, and we may as well just get it out of the way here. This truly felt closer to a classic South Park episode than we've had in a long while. First of all, it focuses on the main four boys. Of course, everything in this episode is pretty much politically charged, but their ways of handling it feels like a classic mundane South Park episode. The kids are coming up with essentially a scam, a scam to, get vaccines, not just to help people, but to really for their own self-gain. And that is incredibly refreshing. That is so refreshing to see from a South Park episode that not only focuses on the main four boys, but is something that feels, written like a classic South Park episode.
Yeah, I agree. And I also like the way that like you said, it kind of reminisces about old South Park, but it was very much realistic about the South Park we have now, which is, it kind of showed the boys getting a divorce. And I liked the way that it came about, because they were all arguing over what to do with the vaccines. And it felt very true to all their characters, where Kyle wants to do the right thing and give it to the teachers. Cartman wants to just sell it to the highest bidder so he can get money. Stan kind of wants to just take it for themselves, because as we saw last episode, he's really, really sick of the pandemic. And so I really liked how that conflict kind of showed the boys kind of spiraling, and how they all really kind of disagree lately. And I really liked that they Matt and Trey kind of acknowledged that the boys' friendship has been different in the later seasons. And then that was the one thing that didn't reset, that the boys agreed that they were still going to break up at the end.
Exactly. And, of course, we also need to acknowledge that this episode is heavily filled with fourth wall breaks.
Yes.
So that's another thing that isn't atypical. It really isn't atypical for South Park at all to reference themselves and reference, making fun of the Hollywood elites, but also still technically being part of the Hollywood elites.
Yeah, like the basketball picture on the on the QAnon conspiracy board.
And then also the editing. I absolutely, first of all, it was visually stunning.
Mm-hmm.
The part where Mr. White is, manipulated into a giant fucking penis.
Yeah.
And Garrison is talking to the animator that you cannot see.
Right.
Omnipotent, off-screen animator.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very clever and just visually interesting.
Yeah.
Not just because we got to see like a very graphic penis on screen, but because I liked how it switched into like a visual 2D platform and everything. It changed angles. So that was very interesting, and that is something that we haven't seen from South Park before.
Yeah.
I've never seen the fact that they're an animated show ever really be referenced to. I think the only time I can mention something is the one episode where all the boys have their heads shaved and they can't tell who's who.
Oh, yeah.
The boys, because they all look so similar. But really, that's the closest that we've ever gotten. So it was cool seeing something new with the fourth wall break. Because they've made fun of themselves before, but I thought like the actual animation aspect and referencing the fact that this is an animated show was something that I wasn't bothered by.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I liked it too, and I really enjoyed Garrison making a deal with Matt and Trey or whatever. Especially because Garrison's whole deal is that he wants to be a teacher again, right, and like teach children. But then he straight up tells them, he's like, I don't care if you fuck kids. I just want everyone to like me again.
Another part of this episode that I enjoyed was the QAnon, like the reference to like the QAnon and how this is what actually surprised me probably the most about the episode is when you watch it. The newscasters, one of them is saying like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is terrible. They're having people that are, he's standing up for the community kids, aka,
Community kids with a K. Don't forget that.
With a K, yes. I need to specify. It is with a K because that is,
and a Z.
That's what makes it legitimate. But, he's saying, like, it's great, and these QAnon people are standing in the way of, like, actual justice happening, and another newscaster starts to play devil's advocate where he's like, well, aren't these guys just standing up for what they believe in? And then the first newscaster is like, shut the fuck up. No. We're not comparing apples to oranges here. Fuck you. Like, and that actually surprised me. Because, as you will notice, Rachel and I very much are critical of South Park's perpetual fence sitting. And they kind of, Matt and Trey over the years, like, it's perfectly fine to be critical of both sides, which is like a necessity in politics. You should never blindly follow one side versus the other. But at some point, you do have to, like, take a stand on certain things. And centrism, as to quote Cartman, silence is violence.
Yeah.
So that is something that Rachel and I have been incredibly critical of. So it's actually surprising to see them be so forward on an issue, which, honestly, how do you parody something that's already as ridiculous as an insurrection? How on earth do you exaggerate something that is horrifying,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I really liked the bit with the two newscasters. It reminded me a little bit of, like, I guess real life news, where it's kind of just like Fox News and then whatever the liberal version of that is. And it's kind of them just, like, giving their own opinion on top of the news, instead of just delivering the facts. So I thought that was kind of a nice nod to that. And, yeah, I agree. I was glad that they really, made fun of QAnon. Because, like you said, Matt and Trey are very, they've been very centrist in the past. And I like that they kind of shot down this thing where it's like, well, they're just sticking up for what they believe in, and they have that right. And it's like, well, true, but you're not doing anyone any favors by pretending that every opinion holds the same weight,
Yeah, like, every opinion is completely innocent. And see, this is actually the commentary that I think was this is also a criticism of South Park in general. This is the take that should have been made a long time ago with the white people renovating houses episode. I believe that was the beginning of season 20. or season 21.
It was 21, I think.
I think it was 21, where after the Charleston riots had just happened, where you literally had Nazis, flooding the streets. And really, in that episode, they treated them just as, like, silly, bumbling idiots, like, oh well, and not with the severity that those beliefs actually represent.
Yeah.
And the consequences that follow those beliefs. So, I was appreciative that they went this far and really did, stand out and say, like, that isn't a good belief to have. It's not just about, sticking up for what you believe in. It's shooting down those dangerous beliefs. But this is something that should have been said a long time ago, and sometimes to me it almost feels a little bit too late. It's like, you've been doing this for 23-ish years at this point, and now all of a sudden you want to take a stance when shit is probably at its absolute worst.
Yeah, when it's finally become, like, literally impossible to not pick a side.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, and I will say, though, that one of the, for the most part, I was impressed with it, just like you, but one part of the episode I didn't like was that I didn't like that they just showed all the QAnon people being, like, just the whites and then, like, all the rednecks in town. Because part of the whole QAnon conspiracy is how regular, normal, smart people can get sucked into this. And they can get, and of course they are manipulated because they have these prejudices already. So it kind of makes it a little more difficult for me to feel sorry for them. But I don't know, QAnon really is, it's like a modern day cult, and the whole point is that pretty much anyone can be susceptible to that. And I still don't like the way that South Park kind of portrays the right wing as just hardcore, like, rednecks, Republicans, because it's not necessarily true. It's so easy nowadays, even just for kind of mild conservatives, to be swung so far right because of the internet and things like that.
Oh yeah. And not to bring up an entirely different adult animated cartoon, but like, this is an actual issue, because if you've ever watched the show Bob's Burgers, another show that I very much love, Jimmy, the voice actor for Jimmy Pesto, which is, like, the main rival, I suppose you could say, or one of the main rivals of the show, his voice actor was quite literally at the insurrection and was part of the mob.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like, it's quite serious. It is very true, and that's another criticism I have, again, where it's like, these people are actually real. So it was one thing, I was appreciative that they mentioned it, but at the same time, you can only say the same thing so frequently and try and make a point out of it before it just becomes, like, redundant, and you're really not saying anything new.
Right.
At this point, we know, like, there are some average people that we think, it's not even just the extreme stereotype that you imagine. It's people, like, that you could truly, underestimate, having these warped views. And, beforehand, it was one of those things where it's like, you should be ashamed to be racist. But now a lot of people are just more open, more open about it, because they feel liberated by people like Mr. Garrison, I'll say. They feel more liberated because if somebody like that can be in power, then, of course they can just wildly fling it out in public. So, that is another criticism of mine, where it's like they rely too heavily on that stereotype to try to not offend. I will say, though, they did kind of approach the topic a little bit better when they had the QAnons be the tutors of the students and everything. Yeah. I thought it was really funny how they would just mention the Hollywood elites just as random. They're like, you really don't get it, do you? And they just go into this conspiracy theory and repeat themselves without actually establishing what the hell is happening.
Yeah, and I will say that I did like the little cuties, because it kind of showed how the QAnon people are making a conscious effort to, like, spread their beliefs and get other people on board with this crazy cult. And I also loved when Cartman was like, oh, little cuties with a Q and an apostrophe, that's way better than community kids.
Oh, yeah. Another place where this episode shines, though, are those little jokes like that.
Mm-hmm.
The little witty banters that come specifically from those kids.
Yes.
Specifically from those characters are what are so funny about this episode. It's not even like the exaggerated actions or visual gags. It really is like that one line, banter back and forth between a lot of the characters. There weren't as many like obnoxious running jokes.
Right.
This special. One that did occur that I actually thought was kind of funny and didn't overstay its welcome was the custody battle.
Yeah, I loved that.
And being treated, I've heard some people say they didn't like that and they felt like it had erased Kenny, but I felt the exact opposite. It's almost like them acknowledging the fact and recognizing that Kenny has been pushed off to the side for so long when he was like an integral character for the show for so long.
Yeah, and I also liked that the three boys, as much as they can admit that they have problems with each other or they're upset, everyone all agrees that Kenny has done nothing wrong ever. And everyone still loves Kenny.
We all love Kenny. So I thought that was really cute. Where this episode stood out the most was really how it was written, and the characters that they used and the dynamics that they had between each character. It felt like such a throwback. And of course, at the end, it had a throwback to all previous characters that they had used, like being vaccinated and everything. You had a lot of, really drawn back through the years, some really old references there that probably, like, a lot of newer casual fans wouldn't even understand. But
yeah, like how the boys, when they are running away with the vaccines, they hide out in the old raisins overnight. Did you notice that?
Or I love the space aliens from the episode Canceled. They show up. There's Jesus in there too.
Oh, and the underpants gnomes too.
And the underpants gnomes. Oh my god, how could we forget the underpants gnomes?
I did love that they had the QAnon shaman in the episode. I thought that was really funny and a very like specific figure attached to QAnon. And I actually love that because I love the scene he has with Scott Malkinson where he's his tutor and he's starting to explain to him about QAnon and he goes, "Do you know what pedophilia is? Here, let me show you." And then Scott's like, "Dad! Dad, get in here!" I love that.
Oh.
And then I also loved Craig looking down at the dead body of his tutor and he's just like, "Well, I guess 2021 is just going to be exactly like 2020. I was like, yep.
So that's where the episode really did shine out, and that's what I liked a lot more about this episode than, one, the pandemic special, but also a couple of other seasons.
I also liked how Matt and Trey even kind of acknowledged their own burnout. Like, at the beginning where Cartman's talking about the period thing, he's like, I mean, we're guys. We're just guys sitting around thinking of period jokes. We're really just, like, phoning it in at this point. I thought that was really funny. And then the whole kid breakup thing, which I actually really liked. I think it's going to be interesting going forward. I'm like, I wonder if this means that Matt and Trey's friendship was similarly suffering because of the pandemic. And all the callbacks and the fourth wall break and the sentimental stuff, it makes me think that South Park is going to be ending soon because you don't feel nostalgia for something that's still going. You feel nostalgia for something that's ending or almost over.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, and I guess that's a way that we can transition into kind of our final talking point of this special, which is, what's in the future for South Park? Is there a future for South Park after this episode? Because even though I enjoyed watching it, it almost felt like a little bit of a throwing in the towel. It did. It had a little bit of like, all right, well, we've been on the air for so long, we've made all these references, where else is there to go?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, because I know that they're contracted through season 26, so obviously do another couple seasons. But I would be surprised if they renewed. I think it's pretty obvious that they're kind of done. Which I'm not upset about, to be honest. Like, I love the show, of course, but we've had 20 plus years of it. If Matt and Trey feel like they're done, I feel like I'm ready for it to be done too.
I'd rather it end at a point where I feel satisfied than just not love it anymore.
Yeah, same.
Be at a point where I just refuse to watch later seasons. Because I've had shows that have felt like that before. I've had a lot of shows where I stop watching at a point because I just don't feel like I'm watching the same show anymore. And I know that probably sounds, nitpicky and, closed-minded or whatever. But, I mean, you can kind of tell when a show has run its course. South Park has... And I think we've been saying this, we've been saying it for a while, but this did really feel, it felt refreshing for us, but not in a way where I feel like, oh, South Park's coming back, and it's going to have that momentum, and it's going to be just like it was back in the old days. I'll be honest, not even like as a skeptic, I feel like some of those, previous seasons were just for that time, and I don't think it's something that's going to return. I think that part of South Park is over. We are in such a new era after having so many changes to not only the show, of course, but how we view and consume media in general. So, is there a future for South Park? I mean, obviously, there are seasons that they're contracted to finish, but would I be upset if they decided to never renew? No, not at all. I wouldn't. This felt like a callback to previous episodes, but I don't necessarily see it as a jumping point for future episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to ever have that strength back from what the show used to be.
Yeah, this episode, especially the whole broship divorce storyline, it really, really brought me back to You're Getting Old. The end of that arc where Stan is desperate for things to be better and go back to where they were until he finally says, no, I don't want things to go back. I want to go forward. And that feels very much like what South Park is saying now.
It really does. And I guess my final criticism was, even though I found the whole reset funny and interesting, it does leave a lot to be desired, because in real life and with the show, you've already kind of passed that point where you can't go back and have things return to normal. The show, and completely separate of the real world, that's a whole other topic to even consider, but the show itself has changed so drastically that a reset, if it does try and reset, in the future and future seasons, it's just not, it would feel like a cop-out, and sure, I would love for more episodes to kind of feel like that, but I don't really see that as a reality. I really don't. I think Matt and Trey have been kind of set in their ways as writers, and, it doesn't mean that we can't get good episodes, but it doesn't mean that I want the show to continue.
Yeah. I think we've mostly talked about all of our thoughts, so I wanted to kind of end the episode, or end this review on a good note, which is that I loved the very end of this episode where all the adults are vaccinated, so now they're partying and spitting in each other's mouths.
Yes.
That felt like very classic South Park to me, and that I thought that was very funny. And overall, I liked the episode a lot.
I did too. And as critical as we can be for this show, I was very surprised with how much I loved it. I felt like it had the spirit of South Park kind of back in it. So if this is the route that South Park's going to go forward, I don't really care if it's a long future. I think it does show signs of something better.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what, after South Park's over, what Matt and Trey are going to get up to next. Those little rascals.
I know. I won't lie. I'd fucks for another video game.
Yeah, or maybe even just another movie, like, to close off the show. I think that could be cool.
Honestly, yeah. I think that this format having the hour-long specials have been much stronger. Mm-hmm. They've really allowed for... I think it's a way for them to do serialization without actually having serialized episodes. It allows them to get those really long stories in a 1 hour special without, fucking it up in the last episode of a 10 episode season.
I also think part of that is because they've obviously, because of the pandemic, done over with the 6 days to air format, which I think has lately been hurting them a lot more than it helps them. Because of the months in between these two episodes, it's very clear that Matt and Trey are just like, well, we're gonna air it whenever it's done, not whenever we have to be done whenever it's set to air.
And we've mentioned it before in previous episodes. The 6 days to air worked when you had a single storyline per episode.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. You can't finish a story that you don't have an ending to already in motion.
Yeah.
So, I think that's this 1 hour special is a really good format for South Park. It allows them to do these longer storylines, these more brought out types of stories that they want to tell without being confined to, 20-minute episodes that could go any which way.
Right, yeah, I've always thought, if they want to do longer stories with, serialization, then they can't, keep doing this stringent format that they've been doing. Something's got to give, And I think that this year was really highlighted that. Because these episodes, like you said, they've really shown the strengths of a longer episode and when they have more time to finish it.
Exactly. So, on that note, I think we've rambled enough, as always, about this episode. General consensus is we liked this a lot.
Yeah, largely because there was no Randy.
I know. Did we even really need to say it? There was very little Randy, so I know we're not the only ones thrilled about that. But thank you guys, as always, for listening. Maybe we should pull up Matt and Trey. Actually, no, wait. I think they pulled an us because we, for a while, would only put out a 1 hour long special every 8 months. So, throw us that coin, Matt and Trey. You kind of took our
right. That's funny. Well, I've been happy to have South Park back. Let us know what you think of the episode in the comments, and what videos you'd like to see from us, possibly in the future.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you guys so much, as always, for listening. And also ask us questions, even not about this episode. We like doing those Q&A kind of things. We love getting discussion prompts for South Park, because South Park content is kind of few and far between.
Yeah, it's kind of our thing, in case you haven't noticed.
Well, thank you guys again so much for listening, and we will talk at you later.
Bye.
Bye.